Welcome, members and guests. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, February 9th, 2022. I hereby call the Subcommittee on Elections and Campaign Finance to order. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Representative Holzclaw. Representative Love.
Here.
Representative Manis. Representative Shaw. Representative Williams. Representative Wright.
Here.
Chairman Crawford.
Present.
Chairman Rudd.
Here.
Chairman Rudd, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Well, let's see. First up, first of all, is there any introductions, announcements from members? Seeing none, we can proceed on to bills. Today we have one bill, so let's begin. HB 1869 by Representative Lamar.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second on the bill. Please, let's see, there are no amendments, I believe, so please explain your bill.
Good afternoon, committee. It is great to be here presenting my first bill of the session. This particular piece of legislation I pretty much proposed every year since I've been in session, and many of you all know that in my role as a representative, I use my power to oftentimes inspire the next generation of leaders and students to be engaged in the civic process. And so when I was thinking about the state of the state this past year, that the governor gave, last week, he talked about a call for civics among our young people and allowed them to be more educated and engaged in the civics process. And that's not a political issue, it's not a partisan issue, it's a people issue and a constitutional issue of when we guarantee every person in this nation over the age of 18 the right to vote and engage in that process as a fair and equitable. And so with that being said, this particular piece of legislation, which I've definitely worked on throughout the years with you all, would require our three largest colleges and universities, each in our three grand division, each one in one of the three grand divisions, to require only 3 days of early voting. And why is this important? One, our governor already set the tone that civics is important in our state, especially in our education system. We want to have a chance for our students to inherit their civic duty by engaging in a democratic process. And so for most students, their first chance to engage in fulfilling their civic duty is when they turn 18 years old. And many students in our state, when they turn 18 years old, they are in college. And if we're going to champion patriotism, we must ensure that the students have the opportunity to use their voice in a democratic way the first chance they get. Because if they're not engaged in the civic process from the very beginning, they're more likely not to engage in it at all throughout the duration of their lifetime. And we want to enable opportunities to ensure that 21% of the eligible voters in this state between the ages of 18 to 27 are eligible to vote on campus. We must allow them to do that by placing early voting opportunities on campus. So my bill would require the University of Memphis, MTSU, and the University of Tennessee to offer early voting on campus just for 3 days. We started off at 5. We heard about the issues with the football games. We amended it to 3, which could be during any time during the week. They can choose what 3 days they want to offer early voting on campus. And the great thing about it is UTK is already doing it. And so University of Memphis sits in my district right now, and they are a fan of this initiative. And so, Chairman Rudd, I know MTSU sits in your district. And this, as a chair of elections, I would love for us to, champion something that's going to allow the students, regardless of what their political affiliation is, to be able to engage in the civic engagement process by simply having 3 days to vote on campus. Now, the fiscal note on this bill, nothing. It costs nothing to do this. But it sends a bold statement that aligns with what the governor asked us to do last week in the state of the state. So with that being said, again, I would love you all support on this bill, and I'm open to any questions.
I don't have any currently, but I do say one thing: you've cut it to 3 days, but fiscal review is wrong. There is a cost because they have to pay staff to be there and operate the precinct while they're there, or shut down another precinct and move it, which would not cost other than the moving of the equipment. Did you get letters of or support from the 3 universities and the 3 election commissions?
I have not gotten letters today for this committee, but if if I was able to receive letters from them, would you be in support of this?
Well, we would need them today, but they were, I don't know about, I know MTSU and by the way, MTSU's in Brian Terry's district. I'm across the street, so I can wave
Gotcha,
to them,
okay.
but we're in the same county. I know that last year, the MTSU president and the election commission in Rutherford were opposed to having a permanent precinct there.
Thank
But Representative Hosclaw.
Thank you, Chairman. That's basically one of the things when you said it costs nothing. I mean, do they have voting equipment there? Or?
They would, Representative Moore.
You are welcome to chime in. The local election commissioner of that county will be responsible for putting the equipment there, but all election commissions in the state have the equipment. They wouldn't have to buy extra equipment to do this. That's why the cost is non-significant.
Okay, thank you.
I see Representative Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing the legislation. I think we are clear on the fact that it doesn't cost the state anything, and we want to be clear that it's not going to cost state anything. Any local costs, as Representative Lamar has stated, will be borne by the local election commission and paying of staff to go over there. So we know at least it won't cost the state anything. And the benefit may be much greater, as Representative has stated, because we can see how the students on that campus will be maybe more inclined to go out and engage in voting because they may not have the transportation to be able to go to the voting precinct where they are assigned to vote. I know that we oftentimes want to get nonprofit organizations to engage in transporting students, but it's possible that in this heightened awareness that we have of not having too many nonprofits engage in supporting election activities, this may minimize also nonprofits going past what we want them to do. And so this may be a great fix for a lot of things we have. You put the voting precinct on the campus for a few days, allow the students to gather over there and to go and vote and to go back to their classes. I know when I was a student in Tennessee State, we were blessed that the voting precinct was at Hadley Park, which was literally just a walk down from the campus. I dare say if we had not had that as a voting precinct, we may have had more difficulty getting students engaged in the process. Years later, they even moved it closer to the campus by having it at Friendship Baptist Church for early voting. And so I certainly support your legislation, and if it's possible, maybe you can reach out to the presidents of these various institutions and have a conversation with them and see if they may be amenable to a 3-day or 1-day event where the students know this is your 1 day to come on down and vote, and then it goes back to the normal whatever the other early voting site was going to be. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again, Representative, for bringing this piece of legislation.
Representative Lamar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Love, for those comments, and I completely agree. What I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this 1 week. I am going to get a letter from the University of Tennessee, who's already doing this in the Baker Center, is very supportive of this bill. I will get a letter from the University of Memphis, which is in my district, who will be supportive of my efforts. I will talk to them about do they want to keep the 3 days or the 1 day, but I am open to excluding MTSU because they do not support having this opportunity on campus, and it's this year and the other years too as well, and as the chairman stated, from the Rutherford County Election Commission. But I think that if we could, for those who want this opportunity, not just for students, but for faculty, they should be able to have this opportunity to vote on campus as well. And that includes faculty, that includes staff, that includes the students, and all of those who take part in the college community. So yes, if you would like those letters, I'm going to get them for you, and I want to come back next week to present those to you, if that's okay with the committee.
No, we still have people that requested to speak. You still want to be on the record of speaking. All right, next up is Representative Hosclaw.
I reckon the other issue or thing that you've got to figure out, these students are not necessarily, they come from different states. If they're registered there, how's all that handled? And keeping them, they only vote once and those kind of issues is how you track it and do all those kind of things. And then the other thing is what about East Tennessee State University? You said the 3 grand divisions, but, you know, I'm up there at another point. Thank you.
Representative Lamar.
If you could help me have a conversation with ETSU, I would love to bring them on board to do this. I think that would be great, and have the students in Johnson City take part in this. That would be awesome. So the more the merrier. I mean, you know, when I originally started pushing this bill my first year here in the legislature, I wanted to do all public colleges and universities, our community colleges, our large and medium-sized universities, because, you know, taking part in the civic engagement process is very, very important. And unfortunately, here in Tennessee, we are at the bottom of the nation in voter turnout and voter participation. And I am trying to help change that. And I understand that in my role, young people look up to me to help champion the fact that they want to participate in the civic engagement process. They want to vote. They want to be able to do that easily. And what we do know is young people experience these difficulties such as transportation, a lack of information, and other issues that help make it burdensome to participate in the voting process. I do want to also make sure I include, to further answer your question, that this only applies to the November elections. The summer elections are in the summer, they're not in school. And the presidential primaries, which in Tennessee happens in March every 4 years. The only time this has to happen is in November state and federal general elections. So it's not even a partisan election per se, where you're participating in a primary. It's the general elections or the presidential primaries and presidential lead years, because those take place during when students are in school. Also, most colleges and universities and student clubs online foster voter registration as well. So if a student does move to Tennessee, they can change their voter registration to Tennessee where they currently live. And because voter registration happens 30 days before the November election, that means they have up until October to register to vote, the top of October. So that means from August to the top of October, that's a whole 2 months, they have to register to vote. I know specifically I attended a voter registration campus event with the chairman and the Secretary of State a year or two ago. And so I've seen it at the University of Memphis. UTK does it really, really well, and other colleges and universities. So the burden of out-of-state students, when they move here, they can change their voter registration with their ID. And so that's a very simple process, and it's already happening on our campus. And if it's already happening at ETSU, we would love to include them in this bill so that we can let them vote once they register as well.
Representative Manis.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Lamar, you know, you and I discussed this briefly. I appreciate the intent of what you're trying to do. And, you know, coming from a rather large college town, I certainly appreciate the intent. I had meant to reach out to UTK and just get their input on it. And I have sent a text to the Knox County Election Commission just to kind of get their feedback as well. But my recommendation, you've already done it, was to roll 1 week just to see if we get that information. And I would like the opportunity to reach out to them as well.
Sounds good. And whoever gets to it first, let's do a Zoom call, a phone call, an in-person meeting, whatever that looks like, to help get that conversation fostered and answer those questions and concerns you have. I would be happy to engage in those conversations with you.
Representative Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just simply going to ask if you thought that 1 week would be enough time for you to reach out to these various entities, or if you thought 2 weeks might be better.
I think that 2 weeks is perfect. I am totally open to 2 weeks if that's okay with the chairman and the will of the committee.
Because I just didn't want you to keep having a role if you didn't have it.
I would say advise when you reach out to the election commission and the presidents of the university, to advise them what's entailed in this, because that's what turned MTSU. They have to provide a secure, isolated space. It can't be like in the student union hall. They need a room where they can lock the machines up, that they can have security, that it's just totally isolated to them in one building of one room that they can control. And they have to set aside 20 to 40 parking spaces for the public, because the public will be able to come onto the campus and vote since it is a precinct. So, and MTSU was certainly worried about having the space and the parking space made available. That was a concern to them. But without any objection of the committee, the sponsor is asked to roll for 2 weeks. Any objections? Chairman Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we vote, I just need some clarification, and I don't know if this is something you can provide the committee during this 2-week period, but it's my understanding that we can't have voting machines wherever they can be attached to the internet. So
That's correct.
I would be concerned we would be violating state law if we did that.
Well, if they connected it to the internet at the location.
Okay.
I think the way they do the actual voting machines are not, but the what's called at voting centers anyway, which Rutherford has. I don't think Knox and Shelby County's got voter centers yet, which is another concern all to itself about a vote center, because they couldn't shut it down over 3 days. They'd have to keep it going, and most of ours are vote centers now. We don't have precincts anymore. That the laptops where they check people in is connected, I believe, because they have to keep a continuous update of how many people voted, but the machines are not. But
Can you
yes, that's
get us
something
an
that can
answer
be
for that?
asked and
Thank
get an
you.
answer from the election commissions about that. Any objections to rolling 2 weeks?
I got a comment.
Yes.
And in those 2 weeks, committee members, if you do have a college or university in your district that would like to participate, I will be open to including them as well. But you just let me know. But I just wanted to offer that to y'all as I correct this bill to answer many of your grievances in the 2-week process.
All right. Seeing no objections to rolling 2 weeks, we'll roll HB 1869, 2 weeks. Are there any comments before we adjourn? If seeing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn? All right. All those in favor say aye. We are adjourned.